A rainy afternoon hung heavy over the small, crowded gym, the kind where sweat and dreams mixed with the sound of fists hitting heavy bags. The crowd was buzzing around a demonstration sparring session hosted by Marcus Hale, a well-known black belt and local MMA coach, whose confidence filled any room he walked into. Among the students lining the mats was a quiet, lean man named John Kennedy, who had only been attending classes for 2 weeks and mostly kept to himself. Marcus noticed him leaning on the back wall, observing more than doing, and with a grin that held more pride than kindness, he called out to him. "Hey, John, how about you step up? Let's see what you've got." Laughter rippled across the gym. Everyone knew Marcus sparred rough. John blinked, his face unreadable, but nodded. The room grew tense with curiosity, thinking they were about to watch a harmless joke. But no one knew John's story yet. The kind of story that doesn't show itself until pressure forces it out. And that moment was coming fast. As the two walked to the mat, Marcus was still smiling, but John's silence made a few people uneasy. Marcus assumed John was afraid, and maybe he was, but it wasn't the kind of fear Marcus imagined. John bowed respectfully, something Marcus barely returned. Gloves tapped and the bell sounded. Marcus began with light jabs, playful but sharp, testing. John didn't counter. He simply dodged with subtle, precise movements that made the room shift forward with interest. Marcus scoffed and increased the intensity, throwing harder punches, his kicks slicing the air. John blocked each one like he'd seen them 1,000 times, his face still calm. The laughter quieted. A whisper ran across the gym. "Wait, does he know what he's doing?" But John still hadn't thrown a single strike. He was watching, studying, remembering. The energy changed when Marcus, slightly irritated, rushed forward with a spinning back kick meant to end the joke. But John stepped in, turned, and gently swept Marcus to the ground with an effortless precision that made the entire gym go still. Marcus hit the mat, not hard, but in complete shock. John immediately held out a hand to help him up, but Marcus pushed it away, pride burning hot in his chest. The gym was silent now. The joke was no longer funny. Marcus got up, angry, and attacked aggressively, his strikes sharp with frustration rather than discipline. But John didn't flinch. He slipped past each blow as though he were moving before Marcus even struck. And then, in a moment that seemed slow as breathing, John tapped Marcus on the chest with an open palm. Light, gentle, but final. Marcus froze. And he knew. Everyone knew. John could have ended the fight at any moment. Marcus backed up, confusion, anger, and embarrassment swirling in his expression. "Who are you?" someone whispered from the back of the gym. John lowered his gaze, voice soft. "Just someone who used to fight when fighting wasn't a sport." The room shifted from shock to curiosity, the atmosphere growing heavy with something unspoken. Marcus, still catching his breath, felt something deeper than bruised pride. He felt recognition, of pain, of history, of a scar behind the quiet. The gym stayed silent, waiting. John didn't seem like a man who bragged. He seemed like a man who escaped something, and silence became the most respectful reaction anyone could offer. Marcus cleared his throat and told everyone to take 5, signaling the end of the match, though there hadn't really been one. He motioned for John to follow him into the office upstairs, away from the watching eyes. The door closed behind them, and Marcus leaned against the desk, rubbing his jaw thoughtfully. "Where did you learn to move like that?" he asked. John hesitated, then shared what he had long tried to leave behind. He grew up in rough neighborhoods overseas, learned to fight not for trophies, but for survival. He had once been part of a violent circle, one that demanded strength but cost peace. When his younger brother was drawn into the same world and lost his life because of it, John walked away from everything. He moved across oceans to start over, but some skills don't fade. They follow you, even when you try to bury them. Marcus listened, no arrogance left, only understanding. The gym noises drifted faintly through the closed door. "You didn't come here to prove anything," Marcus said slowly. "You came here to find peace." John nodded. Marcus realized something then. This wasn't a story of dominance, but of endurance. A man who carried a past heavy enough to silence entire rooms without raising his voice. Marcus suddenly felt small, not because John was stronger, but because John had found strength without needing to show it. And in that moment, Marcus's pride softened into something better: humility. When the two walked back onto the gym floor, every student stopped what they were doing. No one laughed. No one whispered. Marcus stood before the group, cleared his throat, and placed his hand on John's shoulder. "This man is our new assistant instructor," he announced simply. The reaction wasn't loud, just respectful nods, an understanding shared without words. John looked surprised, but Marcus meant it. He had never needed someone who fought like him. He needed someone who had learned why not to. The students saw the change in their coach, the kind of change that happens when ego turns into awareness. John's presence reshaped the gym. His teaching wasn't about throwing harder punches or faster kicks, but about understanding yourself. He taught breathing before strikes, balance before power, and patience before pride. Students who once rushed their movements began to slow down, listen, feel. Even Marcus found himself training beside John, learning instead of leading. The gym became quieter during lessons, but stronger in every way that mattered. People weren't just fighting opponents anymore. They were learning to stop fighting themselves. One night after class, a young teen approached John with shaky hands. "I get angry a lot," he admitted, voice breaking. "I don't know how to stop." John knelt down to meet his eyes, remembering a younger version of himself. "Then you've already taken the hardest step," John said gently. "You noticed." The boy nodded, tears falling freely, and John simply placed a hand on his shoulder and breathed with him. The entire gym watched, realizing that strength can be quiet. Strength can be soft. Strength can save, not just break. And in that moment, the gym felt less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. Years later, people still told the story of the day a black belt called out the quiet new guy as a joke. But they didn't tell it as a tale of humiliation or victory. They told it as the day the gym changed. The day strength looked like gentleness. The day respect replaced ego. The day a lesson walked in wearing silence like armor. And every time the story was told, someone listening needed to hear it. Because everyone fights something. And everyone needs to know there's a way to stop swinging and start healing. In the end, the story doesn't inspire because a black belt was humbled. It inspires because a broken man rebuilt himself quietly and chose to teach others how to do the same. Not with force. Not with pride, but with presence. And maybe that's the real reason the gym went silent that day. Not because they witnessed a fight, but because they witnessed a man who no longer needed one.